The hall glimmered with lantern light, casting long shadows across polished floorboards. She stepped carefully, the hem of her plain dress brushing the edges, and clutched the worn shawl around her shoulders. Guests murmured, glances sharp and curious. "Well, look at her," whispered a woman in pearls, nudging her companion. Did she actually think she belonged here? She shouldn't even be in the doorway, another laughed. Her chest tightened. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The heiress, radiant in silk that shimmered like morning dew, stepped forward, her smile cruel. "Oh, how charming! The little outcast graces us with her presence. Tell me, do you always dress like that? Or just for special occasions?" A ripple of laughter followed. She lowered her gaze, cheeks burning. I meant no offense," she murmured, voice trembling. "Offense," the heiress mocked. "We're simply observing reality. Not everyone is meant for elegance, you see. Some are born to shadows." The words cut sharper than a whip. She pressed her hands to her chest, feeling the sting of humiliation. A gentleman in a brown coat leaned close to his friend. Quite the courage showing up here. Though one wonders why. "I wonder that, too," the friend replied, smirking. She swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. Every whispered comment felt like a weight pressing down. The laughter swelled, echoing in the vaulted hall. From the back he watched. A quiet cowboy, hat tipped low, eyes shadowed but attentive. He said nothing, yet his gaze followed her every movement. There was no mockery in him, only concern, a quiet gravity. "Perhaps she thinks she can join the dance," the heiress said, tilting her chin. "Do you know how to waltz, little shadow?" Her lips parted. I. "Not quite," another guest interjected, laughing. "You stumble even in words. Imagine the dancing." She swallowed, trembling, and looked down at the floor. Dust clung to her boots, unnoticed by the room until someone pointed and chuckled. A child near the staircase tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mama, why is she dressed like that?" "She doesn't belong, darling," the mother whispered. "Don't look too long." Her hands gripped the shawl tighter. She wanted to vanish, to melt into the walls. Every glance felt like a dagger. She heard her heartbeat thundering beneath the thin fabric. "Stand straight, at least," someone whispered, barely concealed in their amusement. "Try to look human while you're here." She lifted her chin as best she could, fighting tears that pricked at her eyes. The heiress sauntered past, whispering just for her to hear. "You should have stayed in the shadows where you belong. The world isn't kind to those who wander out of line." I'm only visiting," she said softly, barely audible. "Visiting?" The heiress laughed like bells ringing in the night. "Visiting? You have no place here at all." A gentleman behind her cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should let her leave before she embarrasses herself further." The words, though intended kindly, only sharpened the sting of shame. She took a trembling step back. He moved slightly, adjusting the brim of his hat. His presence was calm, a silent promise of safety, though she did not yet know him. The music swelled, a waltz that felt cruel in contrast to her turmoil. She pressed a hand to her chest, wishing for escape, for invisibility, for the earth to open and swallow her whole. "May I?" someone asked mockingly, holding out a hand. "Shall we show her the proper way to stumble?" She shook her head. "No, thank you." Laughter erupted, ringing cruelly through the hall. She stepped toward the door, hoping no one would stop her. Every footfall echoed like a drumbeat of shame. A waiter passed with a tray of wine, eyes flicking away nervously. The room seemed to contract, closing in on her. She clutched the shawl tighter and turned, feeling every gaze burn into her back. Outside, the cool night air met her like a bomb. The town's lanterns flickered in the darkness, dust swirling in the moonlight. She exhaled sharply, shoulders trembling, as the hall's windows glimmered behind her. "Are you all right?" a low voice said from the shadows. She turned, catching sight of the cowboy, his hat tilted, eyes steady and unreadable. No words of judgment, no hint of mockery, just quiet concern. I need to go," she whispered, voice raw. He nodded once. Take your time. Walk safe. Her boots crunched on the gravel, tears finally slipping free. The party's laughter faded behind her, replaced by the night's hush. The cowboy watched from the shadows, hand resting lightly on the rail of the porch. Something in his gaze was like justice waiting quietly, and though she did not see it fully, it lingered as she disappeared down the road, humiliated but alive. The moon hung low over the town, silver light glinting off the dusty streets. She walked carefully, heels clicking against the rough boards of the sidewalks, shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. Look who's wandering out again. A rough voice called from the saloon's shadow. Thought you'd hide in that little hole forever. I'm just passing through, she said softly, head bowed, boots kicking at gravel. Passing through? Another laughed. You never belong anywhere, do you? She clenched her fists, stomach twisting, and kept moving. The lanterns swung in the night breeze, throwing long, quivering shadows on the wooden boards. Why do you even come out at night? The first voice sneered. Don't you know the streets aren't safe for what you are? She didn't answer. Her lips pressed thin, eyes scanning the darkened windows of the closed general store. The town felt alive with judgment, every whisper and footstep a reminder of her shame. Hey, stop hiding from us, a new voice shouted. Small stones bounced off the boards near her boots. She jumped back. Please, just leave me be, she whispered. A rock skipped past her shoulder, thudding against a post. What's the matter? Too weak to stand. Her chest heaved. She ducked behind a corral, heart pounding. Moonlight fell on her hands as she gripped the rough wood, trembling. From the shadows, he watched. The cowboy's hat tipped low, eyes steady. He did not call out or intervene yet, only measured, silent. When the stones hit, he stooped and placed a small loaf of bread atop the fence post. She spotted it only briefly, hesitant fingers hovering. Hunger pressed against her ribs. She glanced around, but the bully's laughter echoed through the empty street. She moved cautiously, picking up the bread, hands shaking. Food's yours now, Shadow, he murmured, though she did not hear him. His voice carried calmness she had not known in years. Who's there? She asked softly, looking around. Empty streets answered. Don't look for me, he replied quietly from the dark. Walk steady. Keep safe. She nodded, not fully understanding, but hope flickered like a candle in her chest. The bread was heavy in her hands, but warmth seemed to spread through her fingers, as if the simple act of kindness could hold back the cold. Eating alone now? How sad. One of the bullies jeered from across the street, throwing another stone. She ducked lower behind the corral. Please go away, she said, voice barely audible, trembling. Or what? You'll cry? Oh, you already are, they mocked. Her hand brushed the loaf, bread soft beneath her touch. The smell was faint but real, comforting in the midst of fear. She swallowed hard. I'm not afraid of you, she whispered, though her voice quivered. You think you can stand here like that? Pathetic, another added, stepping closer. She squeezed her eyes shut, listening to the boots scraping the boards, her pulse a drum in her ears. Shadows stretched long, merging with the fence posts and the open gates. The town felt like it pressed in from every side. A sudden wind stirred, rustling papers in the street. She peeked through the boards, seeing the gang pause, momentarily distracted by the sound. The chants came and went. She kept her head low, body pressed tight against the wood. Why do you always crawl back here, huh? You'll never change. One spat. She clenched her jaw. I don't have to listen to you, she said, voice firmer. Small steps back, careful but deliberate. Another rock clattered nearby. Run then, Shadow. Run before we teach you a lesson you'll remember. She hesitated, then bolted past the corral, heart hammering. Her shawl slipped, boots scuffing against gravel. Dust rose in clouds behind her as she fled toward the quiet edge of town. The cowboy emerged just at the corner of the street, quiet as the wind. This way, he said calmly, gesturing toward the empty path leading to the outskirts. Keep moving. Don't look back. She stumbled, chest heaving. Who are you? Someone who sees, he said simply. Keep steady, Shadow. His voice was low, careful, grounding. She dared a glance. Moonlight caught his hat and coat, calm in contrast to the jeering darkness behind her. A small part of her chest loosened. The bully's shouts faded as she ran, the dust settling behind her. The night smelled of pine and distant water, the cool air brushing her cheeks. The town's judgment still lingered in her ears, but a seed of hope had been planted, fragile but real. She slowed near a fence post, bread held close, and took a small, trembling bite. Warmth spread through her, mingling with fear, anger, and the tiniest thread of trust. Eat, he said softly from the darkened corner, and know that not all are cruel. Her fingers curled around the loaf. I think I understand, she whispered, voice small but steady. The cowboy watched her, silent, hat tilted low. Shadows of the town stretched long behind them, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a measure of safety. The wind carried the distant laughter of the bullies away, leaving only the hush of the moonlit street. She pressed the bread to her chest, heart still racing, and stepped forward toward the quiet open path, guided by the unseen protector at her side. The morning sun stretched pale fingers over the plains, dust rising from the wagon tracks like ghosts. She walked slowly, boots scuffing the gravel, shawl wrapped tight, eyes fixed on the horizon where the land met the sky. You shouldn't wander alone out here, a calm voice called. She turned sharply, seeing him step from the shadow of a fence. Hat low, eyes steady, boots dusty from the trail. Who are you? She asked, voice cautious. Someone who can offer you work, he said, tone even. A place to stay if you need it. She hesitated, hands tightening around the shawl. I don't want charity. This isn't charity, he replied. It's trust. You can take it or leave it. Her eyes swept the rugged plains, open and endless, wind stirring her hair. She swallowed hard. I suppose I could stay for a little while. Good, he said simply. Follow me. Easy steps. No rushing. The path led past low wooden fences, horses grazing under the morning sun, ears twitching at every sound. She followed unsure, shoulders tense. The cowboy led her to a small barn, its wood rough and sun-faded. You'll feed the horses first, he said, gesturing to the stalls. Hay's in the loft. Water's already down. She stepped inside, nostrils filling with the warm scent of hay and leather. I've never done this before, she admitted. You'll learn, he said quietly, crouching to stroke a bay mare. They read people better than townsfolk ever could. Be gentle, steady. Her fingers hovered over the feed bucket. Like this? She asked, dropping hay into the stall. Exactly, he said. Slowly, don't hurry. Let them trust you. She watched the horse nuzzle her hand, startled by her own reaction. It's soft, warmer than I expected. That's trust, he said, voice calm as the plains. It doesn't come all at once. After the horses, he handed her a brush. Clean the stalls. Dirt and dust will be your company. Don't mind the sweat, it's honest work. She bent to rake the floor, hay clinging to her dress. It's quieter than the town, she murmured. Quiet is its own reward, he said. You hear yourself think. You hear the land. Hours passed, sun climbing, dust rising with each movement. She paused by a trough, lantern swinging overhead as the shadow of the barn stretched long. Her palms were raw from brushing the horses, her dress streaked with hay and dirt. You're doing fine, he said, leaning on the doorway. Faster than I expected. Faster than I expected, she echoed, eyebrows lifting. Don't let it worry you. You're learning, that's all. She sighed, brushing back hair damp with sweat. It feels strange to be treated like I matter. Strange because it is, he said softly. Most folks don't see the quiet, the steady. They only see what they want. Her gaze dropped to the lantern's glow, flickering across the water's surface. Kindness, is it real? Or just another trick? He stepped closer, boots stirring dust. It's real, but you'll know soon enough, not by words, but by what lasts. She nodded slowly, letting the warmth of the barn, the animals, and his quiet presence settle around her. Her heart, bruised and weary, allowed a thread of hope. Tomorrow, you'll help with the fence, he said, voice low. See how the land stretches, how each post holds steady. Learn patience. Patience, she repeated. It's harder than it sounds. Everything worth learning is, he said, straightening. The land doesn't rush, the horses don't hurry, and neither should you. She glanced at him, searching the calm lines of his face. And if I fail? Failure is nothing, he said. Dust blows away. Lessons stay. Keep walking forward. The wind shifted, carrying straw and the faint smell of horse sweat. She exhaled slowly. I think I can try. Good, he said, tipping his hat briefly. We'll start early. She bent to check a stall once more, brushing dirt from a sleeping colt. I thank you for this. He did not smile much, but his eyes softened. Don't thank me. Just do what you can. That's enough. Outside, the plains spread wide, golden and silent. The barn doors creaked in the morning wind. Dust stirred around their boots. She glanced at him, then at the horizon. For the first time in a long while, the day seemed less heavy. Can I sit a moment? She asked, easing herself onto a worn crate. The lantern above flickered, casting long shadows across her face. Sit, he said, voice gentle. Take in quiet. Let it settle. Her fingers traced the rough wood, heart still hammering, but slower now. It feels different here. Safe, somehow. Good, he said, leaning against the barn post, arms crossed. Safe is something worth noticing. Remember it. The colt stirred, snorting softly, nudging her with a warm nose. She laughed lightly, brushing its mane. It feels alive. Not like the town, where every step is fear. That's the point, he said. Life out here isn't soft, but it's honest. You'll know soon enough what steady feels like. She tilted her head, watching him study the horizon, silent and still. Do you always live like this? Quiet, steady. He nodded. It's the only way that matters. She sank back, letting the lantern light fall on her face. The dust of the barn, the warmth of the animals, the slow rhythm of work, all of it mingled with her wary hope. Could kindness last, or was it only a fleeting shadow? Rest now, he said softly. Tomorrow, we start again, step by step. She nodded, eyes on the horizon where the plains stretched endless, sunlight gilding the distant hills. For the first time, she believed she might walk forward without fear, led by quiet trust rather than scorn. The sun rose slow over the ranch, dust drifting in the morning light. She carried water from the trough, careful not to spill a drop, boots scraping against the wooden boards. You'll need to steady that bucket, he said, voice calm as the wind through the plains. I'm trying, she replied, chin tight, arms trembling. Don't rush, he said. Steady hands keep more than water in place. She lowered the bucket carefully, letting it settle. It's harder than it looks. Everything worth learning is, he said, nodding toward the fences lined with sun-bleached wood. We'll start with repairs today. She followed him to a fence, hands brushing the rough wood. Do you expect me to do it perfectly? Expectations don't matter, he replied. Effort does. If it breaks, fix it. If it holds, keep moving. She lifted a post, testing its weight, then hammered it back into place. Dust rose around her, sunlight catching in the strands of her hair. Like this? She asked, wiping sweat from her brow. Exactly, he said. Slow and steady. Later, he brought her to a horse, a chestnut mare shifting her hooves. Saddle her carefully, he instructed. She'll notice everything you do. I've never done this before, she admitted, fingers brushing the leather. Then learn, he said softly. Mistakes are quiet teachers. Her hands fumbled, adjusting the straps. Is this right? Close enough. She'll forgive a tremble. Humans not always so patient. A small laugh escaped her. I've learned that the hard way. He glanced at her, eyes steady, no judgment. Then you'll find patience here. At midday, he handed her a cup of tea, steam rising against the hot air.
Drink.
It'll warm more than your hands. Thank you, she said, holding it carefully. The warmth seeped through her fingers, a small comfort against the dust and sun. You're welcome, he replied, voice quiet. Sit for a moment. Rest before the next task. She lowered herself onto a crate, watching the mare nibble hay. It's different here. Nobody laughs at me. Quiet work, honest labor, he said. The land and animals don't judge. Her lips pressed thin. It feels almost like freedom. You'll notice it more each day, he said, step by step. Afternoon shadows stretched across the barn as she swept the stalls. Her hands moved automatically, brushing hay into piles, listening to the horses' soft snorts. I never thought work could feel kind, she murmured. It isn't work that's kind, he said. It's how you treat it. Respect and patience. Evening fell slow. She paused by a lantern swinging gently in the wind, light flickering across her flushed face. Her heart had not ached all day. Not once had tears slipped past her. Has the day been too hard? He asked, leaning against the barn post. No, she said, voice small but steady. It's been quiet. Safe. That's the point, he said. Quiet builds trust. Safe builds courage. Her eyes drifted toward the distant road, heart tightening. And yet, the town, they'll still talk, won't they? Let them, he said softly. The land doesn't care. Horses don't care. You should notice it too. A shadow moved beyond the fence, and she squinted. A rider appeared, distant but deliberate, dust rising from hooves. Her chest tightened. They follow even here, she whispered. They watch, he admitted, voice low. But the watchful don't reach this far. Not truly. Her hand brushed the lantern's rim, eyes wide. I hope you're right. I am, he said. Step by step. Each day you build, they fade into the dust behind you. She lowered herself onto the crate again, watching the mare stretch beneath the fading light. It feels like they can't touch me here, she said, voice soft. Not when you stand steady, he said. Not when you know what matters. Small gestures caught her attention. A cup of tea left near the barn, a boot smoothed clean after chores, quiet acknowledgement of mistakes no one else would notice. Each one chipped at the walls she had built around her heart. I think I'm beginning to trust, she said, fingers tracing the rough wood of the crate. Good, he said. Trust is the first step toward something lasting. The wind rustled through the hay, carrying the smell of sweat and the distant plains. She watched the lantern sway, shadows flicking across her face, and allowed herself a small, unguarded breath. You've done enough for today, he said. Leave the rest until morning. Even the land rests at night. She nodded slowly, rising, feeling the ache in her muscles, the quiet satisfaction of work done. Tomorrow we'll continue? Yes, he said. Slowly, carefully, step by step. She glanced toward the horizon, the sky a wash of gold and purple, dust rising faintly from the barnyard. Her heart, once heavy with fear, felt lighter, anchored by the quiet consistency of his words, the small acts of attention that mattered more than grand gestures. Thank you for noticing, she said quietly, eyes downcast. He tipped his hat slightly. Noticing is the beginning. The rest you'll carry forward. The rider in the distance faded as dusk deepened, the threat of the town's cruelty lingering faintly but less sharply. She let her shawl fall loose, taking in the cool evening air, lantern light flickering over her hands and the crate where she rested. For the first time in years, she realized she had not cried. The walls around her heart had begun to crack, and though fear still lingered, kindness had arrived quietly, like water through dry earth, leaving a small bloom of hope in its wake. The sun fell low over the plains, dust rising in soft clouds as she worked the barn. Hands brushed straw from the stalls, fingers rough, muscles stiff. You're moving slower than yesterday, he said from the doorway, voice steady, boots crunching the gravel. I'm thinking, she replied, brushing hay into a pile. About the fences? The horses? He asked, tilting his head. About the town, she admitted, eyes flicking to the open horizon. The whispers. The laughter. They fade out here, he said, voice quiet. But shadows linger. You notice them. That's all. Her hands shook as she swept, the memory of cruel voices pressing on her chest. They mocked me. Even children pointed, even my friends turned away. You can't change what's behind you, he said, leaning against the barn frame. Only how you face today. She nodded, shoulders tight. It's hard to forget. A small voice interrupted, clear in the quiet barnyard. Are you the lady from town? She looked up. A child, dusty and barefoot, held a hand-carved horse, eyes wide and curious. Yes, she said slowly. I am. The child stepped closer. I made this for you. Her fingers hovered over the wooden toy. For me? Yes, the child nodded. You look nice. You help the animals. That's good. She blinked, swallowing a lump in her throat. Thank you, she whispered. Her voice felt strange, soft, almost tender. You're welcome, the child said. I like seeing you here. You're kind. He watched quietly from the barn's shadow, tipping his hat slightly. No words of praise, only careful observation. Her hands shook slightly as she held the toy, brushing the dust from it. It's beautiful, she said, voice low. It's the first gift anyone's given me, just for being me. The child grinned, then ran back toward the town, boots kicking up dust. She stood, clutching the small horse to her chest, heart tightening and softening all at once. Hearts notice what words cannot, he said quietly. She looked up at him, startled. How do you always know? Not knowing, he said. Observing. Quietly. That's enough. The day passed slow, hands busy with hay and water. Each movement carried rhythm, the barn smelling of dust and horses. Occasionally, he offered a small word, steady, calm, but mostly he watched her work. At dusk, lanterns swayed in the wind. She paused, brushing a strand of hair from her face, the child's gift resting on a crate beside her. It feels different, she said, voice soft. To be seen kindly. It is different, he said, voice low. That's the point. Kindness is rare. Notice it. Hold it. She nodded, eyes on the lantern swinging slowly, shadows dancing across her flushed face. For a moment, fear and shame fell away. But as night edged the barn, the distant sound of hooves rattled through her chest. She turned toward the town's faint glow and froze. They're talking, she whispered. What do you hear? He asked, stepping close, hat tipped low. I overheard, her voice trembled. Plans to humiliate me. Again. At the fair, they say. He watched her, expression calm but attentive, noting the quick catch in her breath, the tightening of her jaw. Let them talk, he said softly. Their words don't reach you here. They will, she said, lips pressed thin. They always follow, even to the plains. Only as far as you allow, he said, voice steady. Their cruelty is a shadow. You've learned how to stand beyond shadows. She held the carved horse closer, the wooden body warm against her chest. I want to believe that, she murmured. You should, he said. Each day here proves it. Her gaze drifted over the barnyard, the wind stirring straw at her feet, the lantern swaying, shadows long and flickering. The gift in her hand reminded her of innocence, of the rare trust that still existed in the world. They were cruel, even people I trusted, she said quietly. It hurts more than I expected. Pain teaches, he said. Not bitterness, but patience. Notice kindness when it comes. Accept it. Let it root. She blinked, swallowing the lump in her throat. I think I am starting to understand, she whispered, voice tight but steadier than before. Good, he said simply. Notice the small steps build strength. The night deepened, stars winking over the plains. Dust clung to her boots, lantern light flickered against the barn wall, and the air smelled of hay and sweat. She pressed the carved toy close, heart still racing from the memories, yet warmer now from the child's kindness. "They think they can frighten me, control me, humiliate me," she said, voice low. "They cannot," he said. "You've walked beyond their reach. Remember that. Their judgment is behind, yours is ahead." She nodded, leaning against the lantern-lit crate, chest rising and falling. "Even if fear returns, I think I can face it better. Step by step," he said. "As always. That's all anyone can ask." The barn settled into quiet, broken only by a distant owl and the soft snort of horses. Shadows lengthened, wind shifting through the wooden slats. She glanced once more toward the town, thoughts heavy with dread, but hands warmed by the carved gift, heart softened by rare innocence. The ghosts of the past lingered, but for the first time in long months, they no longer held her fully. The lantern swayed gently, casting long shadows across the barn, and for a moment, she allowed herself to believe that kindness could last, even in a world built on cruelty. Sunlight stretched across the plains, dust rising faintly as she carried feed buckets toward the barn. Her hands moved with steadier rhythm, fingers brushing straw with quiet assurance. "You're faster today," he said from the doorway, hat tipped low, eyes watching. "I've learned the routine," she replied, voice clearer, shoulders straighter. "Good," he said. "The land notices effort. So, do the animals." She paused, brushing hay from her sleeves. "I think they trust me more." "Trust isn't given, it's earned," he said quietly. "And you've earned it." A mare shifted in her stall, nostrils flaring, ears flicking. She stepped closer. "Easy now," she whispered, hands soft on the leather strap. "It's all right." The horse calmed, lowering its head. She exhaled, lips twitching into a small smile. "I did it," she said softly. "You did," he replied. "Step by step, as always." Later, she walked into town with a small list of supplies. Dust clung to her boots, sun glinting off the windows of the market. "Good morning," the shopkeeper said, gentle and warm, eyes scanning her with quiet respect. "Morning," she replied, voice steady, placing her coins on the counter. "Everything's ready for you," the shopkeeper said, nodding toward neatly stacked sacks of grain. "Thank you," she said, letting a small smile appear. "It's helpful." "Take your time," he said. "No rush for anyone here." Outside, the pastor tipped his hat as she passed. "Working hard on the ranch?" he asked softly. "Yes," she replied. "Each day brings something new." "Good," he said, voice calm and kind. "Keep walking steady. You're doing well." She felt warmth spread through her chest, the first quiet sense that she was not defined by scorn. Back on the ranch, he handed her the reins of a horse. "Ride along the northern stretch today," he said. "See how far you can go." "Alone?" she asked, eyebrows raising. "Yes," he said simply. "I trust your judgment. Keep steady." Her hands tightened on the reins, legs pressed firm against the mare's sides. "I'll try." "Try, yes. But remember, steady comes first." Dust rose behind her hooves as she followed the winding trail into the plains. Sunlight gilded the grass, the air dry and sweet. The mare moved with a rhythm she matched, body and breath in quiet sync. She paused atop a small rise, eyes scanning the horizon. The land stretched wide, endless, free. "It feels good," she murmured. "To be here, to know I can do it." "Heard," he said from behind, voice calm, boots crunching. Confidence grows with each step. Not with words, but with proof. Her chest lifted, pride swelling quietly. I can handle it," she whispered. "You can," he said. "Even when the world doubts you, you'll know." The afternoon wore on, and she mended a fence alone, hammering posts with steady hands, each strike precise. Dust rose with each movement, the rhythm of work filling the air. A colt whinnied nearby, startled by a crow. She approached, hands outstretched. "Easy, easy," she murmured. The colt's eyes softened, ears flicking forward. "It's okay," she said. No harm. It nuzzled her shoulder, and she laughed softly.
See?
You're calm now. Nothing to fear. Evening came, the sky painted gold and violet. She returned to the barn, brushing her hands along her dress, shoulders relaxed, head held higher than before. Day's done, he said, tipping his hat. You handled it all well. I feel proud, she admitted, voice quiet but firm. That's good, he said. Pride is earned here, not given. The next morning, she entered the town market, baskets in hand. A group of young men lingered near the general store, whispering as she passed. Look who's here, one said, voice sharp. The shadow thinks she belongs. Still prancing around like she's important, another added. Her chest tightened, pulse rising, but she kept her head high. Good morning, she said firmly, voice clear. I'm just picking supplies. They laughed softly. Fancy words won't change who you are, one said. She ignored them, eyes straight ahead, feet steady on the dusty boards. The shopkeeper nodded from inside, quiet acknowledgement that bolstered her courage. Not all the town is cruel, she murmured to herself, voice low. No, he said quietly, stepping beside her. Some notice effort. Some see steady hands. She glanced at him, heart steadier, lips pressing into a small, determined line. I can handle it now, she said. Good, he said. Keep steady. That's the first victory. She moved through the market, dust rising behind her, baskets full, head high. Each step, each interaction, built something she had never felt before. Quiet confidence. Back on the ranch, she tended the horses again, hands brushing soft manes, reins steady, voice clear. Easy now, don't be afraid, she said, calm and firm. The mare shifted, then lowered her head. She smiled, brushing sweat from her forehead. We did well, she whispered. Indeed, he said softly. Step by step, you grow. Even when shadows linger, you'll know your own strength. She glanced toward the distant market, remembering the bully's whispers. Fear still lingered, but pride had taken root. She pressed her fingers along the wooden fence, inhaling the scent of dust and hay. They can speak, she murmured, but I have learned to stand. Exactly, he said. Confidence isn't loud. It's steady, and you're steady now. The wind shifted, rustling straw and dust, the barn settling into quiet. Lanterns swayed gently, casting long shadows. She let herself breathe, chest rising and falling, a slow smile forming. Even as the past whispered, she had begun to rise above it, step by careful step, grounded in the land, the work, and the quiet trust of one unwavering cowboy. Dust swirled along the main street as she walked toward the saloon, baskets in hand, boots scraping the worn boards. Whispers followed her steps, voices low but sharp. Look who's trying to play proper now, a woman hissed, eyes narrowing. She thinks she can walk among us, another added, lips curling in a sneer. She kept her gaze forward, fingers brushing the shawl around her shoulders. Ignore them, she muttered, voice tight but steady. They can't be ignored, one man called, voice carrying. Do you hear what people say? I do, she admitted, head held high. But their words, they're theirs, not mine. Inside the saloon, the heiress laughed, high and sharp. Did you see her? Cleaning barns, feeding horses, as if it makes her worthy. She'll never be like us, another said, smirking. She paused near the doorway, heart tightening, palms clammy. The voices pressed against her, memories of scorn and mockery rising like smoke. A quiet voice from the doorway interrupted the scene. Perhaps we should leave judgment to those who build, not those who whisper. She looked up, eyes meeting the cowboy's calm gaze. Hat low, boots covered in dust, stance steady. He stepped closer, blocking the harshest view of the crowd. She's done nothing wrong, he said, voice even but firm. Working with honest hands and steady mind, that's worth more than any gold in this town. The heiress's laugh faltered. And who are you to judge? I am someone who sees more than appearances, he replied. And I will make sure they understand. Her chest rose and fell, tension laced with relief. Thank you, she whispered, voice barely audible. No thanks needed, he said. You've done the work. The proof is yours. Outside, she leaned against the fence, fingers tracing the worn wood, the familiar weight of her bucket at her side. The lantern swung gently in the breeze, casting flickering light over her face. Its glow warmed her chest, a small anchor in the storm of judgment. You can't let them define you, he said softly, stepping beside her. Notice the steady, the constant. That's what matters. I want to believe that, she said, eyes downcast, hands brushing the shawl close. You should, he said. Step by step, you'll see. Actions speak louder than whispers. She turned toward the saloon again, catching sight of the heiress and her companions laughing, voices carrying through the open door. Fear prickled her skin, shame tugged at her chest, but she clutched the lantern and the shawl, symbols of safety, resilience, and the identity she had begun to build. I've faced them before, she murmured. I can do it again. You've faced worse, he said quietly. This is no different. Stand steady. She breathed slowly, shoulders straightening, hands brushing the lantern's rim. Steady, she repeated, voice firmer. A gust of wind stirred straw across the ranch yard, and she glanced at the horses, calm and patient, eyes soft in the fading light. They trust me, she whispered, heart lifting slightly. And that's proof enough, he said. Trust isn't earned overnight, but you have it. That counts more than their whispers. She let her fingers trace the worn bucket, imagining the countless chores it had carried, the labor and sweat invested. It's comforting, she admitted, to have something solid, something I can rely on. Good, he said. Hold on to it. Let it guide you when voices get loud. Her gaze shifted back to the town, the saloon, the shadowed figures of her critics. They think I'm weak, she said softly, that I can't stand, that I'll crumble. You won't, he said firmly. Not with steady hands, and not with courage built slowly like yours. They've had their chance to define you. Now it's your turn. A moment of silence stretched, the wind carrying distant laughter and the low creak of barn doors. Dust drifted in lazy spirals, sunlight falling soft on her face, and she felt a quiet resolve ignite within her. They can speak, she murmured. But they won't break me this time. Exactly, he said. Step forward. Face them if you must, but do it on your own terms. That's the difference. She inhaled deeply, clutching the shawl close to her chest, letting its weight remind her of the journey so far. The work, the horses, the quiet guidance of a steady hand. On my terms, she repeated, voice clear and unwavering. The heiress leaned out of the saloon, eyes narrowing, lips twisted. Do you really think you belong out here? Yes, she said, voice rising with calm authority. Because I've built my place, and no laughter or whisper can take it from me. The cowboy nodded once, approving, stepping back to let her resolve shine. That's enough, he said softly. Let them learn that words are hollow when weighed against proof. Her hands rested on the lantern, light flickering across her face. The bucket at her feet, the shawl around her shoulders, and the horses grazing quietly nearby, all reminders of what she had achieved. Strength, dignity, and small victories she had earned, step by careful step. I can face them, she whispered to herself. I will face them. The wind rustled straw, the sun dipped low behind distant hills, and shadows stretched long over the ranch. Fear lingered, but it no longer ruled her. She had found steadiness in quiet work, in small acts of trust and kindness, and in the unwavering support of one honorable man. Her resolve hardened, firm and unwavering. The town could whisper, could plot, could mock, but she would not falter. The lantern swayed gently in the evening breeze, shadows dancing on the barn wall, and she stood tall, ready to meet the world with quiet strength and dignity. Dust hung in the air as she rode into town, reins firm in her hands, boots brushing the worn stirrups. The horses' hooves struck the boardwalk in steady rhythm, and behind her, The cowboy's mount followed silently, shadowed but protective. "She's coming," a voice whispered from the saloon steps. "And with that cowboy," another added, lips curling. "Let's see what she can do." She pressed her shoulders back, shawl snug around her shoulders, lantern in her satchel reflecting the morning sun. "We've come," she said softly, voice clear. "No fear today." The cowboy's gaze swept the crowd, calm and unwavering. "Stand steady," he said, voice low, almost to himself, eyes on the gathering townsfolk. A man stepped forward, arms crossed. "Do you really think you belong here? After all you've done, all you've been?" "I belong because I've worked," she said firmly. "I've fed horses, tended barns, and stood under the same sun as anyone here." The heiress leaned from the saloon doorway, silk glinting, eyes sharp. "Ha! Do you think hard work makes a lady?" "It makes someone real," she replied, eyes meeting hers. "Someone who does not need to mock others to feel taller." Laughter rose, cruel and loud, but she held the reins tightly, horse shifting slightly beneath her, muscles taut and ready. "You hear that?" one man muttered. "She's speaking as if she's someone." "Yes," she said, voice firm. "Someone who was mocked, yes. Someone who was whispered about, yes. But now someone who can stand." The cowboy shifted his weight in the saddle beside her. "Steady," he said quietly. "You've done the work, and it shows." A young boy near the fence tugged at his mother's sleeve. "She looks strong," he whispered. "She is," the mother muttered. "Stronger than most of us expected." She took a slow breath, eyes sweeping over the crowd, noting faces turned red, some avoiding her gaze, others thoughtful. "The laughter, the mockery, the cruel whispers," she said, voice steady, "were never mine to carry. They were yours. And I return them to you not with vengeance, but with truth." The heiress's lips tightened. "Truth? You speak as if you've won something." "I have," she said. "I've won my dignity, and that cannot be taken by gossip, mockery, or fear." Murmurs ran through the crowd. A shopkeeper cleared his throat. She speaks differently, respectfully, yet firmly." A man muttered under his breath. "Quiet courage, she has it." "Exactly," she said, voice calm but commanding. "Courage is not loud. It is steady, built by small, honest steps. Steps that you mocked, yet I walked anyway." The heiress stepped forward, face pale, hands fluttering slightly. You think you can shame me?" "I do not seek shame," she said. "I seek truth. And the truth is clear. Cruelty wears no crown." Laughter taken at another's expense is hollow. Mockery hides weakness, not strength. The townsfolk shifted, eyes flicking from her to the heiress. Some avoided the gaze, cheeks flushing, while others whispered among themselves. "Look," one man said quietly, "she doesn't need our approval. She simply stands." The cowboy's presence beside her was silent but solid, a steady anchor. Boots pressed in the stirrups, hat low, eyes observing, ready. No words, just strength and calm that mirrored the moral weight of her statements. "I return your laughter," she said, voice softening, but not with anger. "I return it with dignity. Let it remind you words can wound, but only truth heals." The heiress's silk rustled. "And what do you want from us?" "Nothing," she said, voice calm, shoulders squared. "I want only to live without fear, to walk openly, to tend to my work, and to know that cruelty cannot follow where dignity exists." Murmurs grew, slower now, as some townsfolk nodded, others exhaled quietly, reflecting. The whispers of judgment faded, replaced by a silence that carried weight. A young girl stepped forward, clutching a small carved horse. I think you're brave," she said softly. She smiled gently, the carved toy in mind, hands brushing the small gesture with tenderness. "Thank you," she said. "Bravery is built in steps, quietly, without notice until it stands tall." A man from the market muttered, shaking his head. I underestimated her. Thought she'd be timid, scared." "She's neither," another said, voice low. "Quiet. Strong. Honest. The cowboy nodded to her, barely moving, hat tipped, eyes steady. His presence beside her reinforced every word she spoke. No one could challenge her courage with laughter or whispers while he remained a silent shield. You see, she said, voice soft but resonant. Strength is not in the gold you wear, the silk you drape, or the laughter you steal. Strength is in standing when all expect you to kneel. It is in kindness when cruelty seeks to reign. It is in truth, spoken firmly, without fear. The heiress faltered, lips pressed thin, cheeks pale. She glanced around, eyes wide as faces avoided hers. The crowd's mockery had dissolved, replaced with reflection, some embarrassment, some quiet admiration. You've changed the air here, whispered one townsman. Yes, she said, shoulders straight, chin lifted. And I will keep it steady. For myself, for those who watch quietly, for the land that holds us, and for the truth that cannot be silenced. A gust of wind stirred straw, dust swirling across the boardwalk. Lanterns in the storefronts swayed gently, casting long shadows that danced across her calm face. Her hands rested lightly on the reins, the shawl snug around her shoulders, the bucket of small chores behind her, reminders of every step taken, every act endured, every quiet victory earned. Step by step, she whispered, voice steady. That is how we rise. And that is how we endure. The cowboy's hand rested lightly on the saddle horn, a silent acknowledgement of her courage, unspoken yet understood. No applause, no grand gestures, just the weight of moral truth and steady, unwavering support. The crowd began to disperse slowly, murmurs of respect threading through the once cruel whispers. Faces softened, some still embarrassed, others thoughtful. The heiress watched, lips pressed tight, unable to meet the steady gaze of the woman she had scorned. She breathed slowly, feeling the wind on her cheeks, the steady rhythm of hooves beneath her, the land wide and enduring before her. In that moment, she knew, dignity cannot be stolen, respect cannot be faked, and kindness, when it arrives quietly, can shield the heart from even the sharpest cruelty. The lantern swung gently in the breeze, the dust rising like mist over the plains, and she rode forward with a quiet smile, shoulders straight, eyes calm, heart anchored. She had faced the town and returned stronger than before, standing tall in her own truth. Dust settled on the ranch as she walked along the fence line, hands brushing the wooden posts, boots pressing into the sun-warmed earth. The horses grazed quietly, heads low, tails flicking. You seem lighter today, he said from the barn steps, hat tipped, hands resting on the rail. I am, she replied softly, shawl draped differently across her shoulders. The town, it no longer weighs on me. Good, he said, voice calm. It takes time to shed the past. You've earned a few lighter steps. She smiled faintly. I can feel it. Even the animals, they respond differently now. I think they sense I'm steadier. You've grown, he said quietly. Not in haste, but in truth. That steadiness shows. A young boy appeared at the gate, clutching a small bundle of sticks. Hello, he said shyly. May I help feed the horses? Of course, she said, voice gentle, kneeling to meet his eyes. Here, take this bucket. Step slowly, and they'll know you mean no harm. He nodded, stepping forward carefully. The horses shifted slightly but allowed him near, following her instructions. She smiled as his hands trembled slightly, learning, trusting, and finding courage in a small act. You see, she said softly, brushing his hair from his forehead, even little steps matter. Courage grows quietly, like grass after rain. The cowboy leaned against the barn, observing. And teaching it to others, that's part of your strength now. A girl approached, holding a small carved horse, eyes bright. I made this for you, she said, voice hopeful. Thank you, she replied, taking the toy gently. It's beautiful. You've put care into it, and it shows. The girl grinned, stepping closer. You always seem kind, even when others aren't. She knelt beside the girl, placing the carved horse on the fence rail. Kindness is not about others. It begins quietly, within. And when it grows, it touches others naturally. The cowboy tipped his hat slightly, small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. She speaks truthfully, he murmured. She looked toward him, eyes soft. Thank you for standing beside me. Always, he said, voice low. Quiet support is sometimes louder than words. The sun dipped lower, painting the plains gold and violet. She adjusted the shawl, wrapping it around her shoulders like a badge of resilience rather than protection. Each fold carried memory, each thread proof of endurance. I can finally wear it without remembering pain, she murmured. Only strength. He nodded, shifting to stand beside her. Strength isn't loud. It's quiet. Like the land, it endures storms and sun alike. She inhaled deeply, eyes scanning the wide horizon. Dust hung faintly in the light, horses flicking tails, barn doors creaking gently. The land, it feels different now, she said. Safe. Open. Endless. Because you've made it your place, he said. And you've claimed your own ground. A child's laughter floated from the nearby corral. She turned, noticing the boy running beside the girl, both giggling as they fed the smaller animals. The sight brought warmth to her chest. Hope it's here too, she said quietly. Yes, he agreed. It always finds its way to those who nurture it. She knelt to adjust the bucket, dust rising around her boots. I can finally breathe without fear, she whispered, without looking over my shoulder for judgment. You've earned that peace, he said, voice calm but steady. And it will stay, as long as you tend to it. A breeze rustled the lanterns hanging from the barn eaves, casting long shadows over the soft dirt. She reached out, brushing her fingers across one, feeling its warmth and gentle sway. This lantern, it reminds me that even small lights guide the way. Exactly, he said. And when others see it, they understand steadiness, not just flash. The children approached her again, voices small and curious. Can we help with the hay? The boy asked. Yes, she said, handing him a small bundle. Step by step, lift and place. Work together. It will feel lighter if done carefully. The girl mimicked her instructions with the smaller animals. We can do it too, she said proudly. Good, she replied, smiling. Every act, no matter how small, matters. It builds courage, trust, and care. He watched quietly, hat low, shadows falling across his face. And in teaching others, you've healed further, he murmured. She looked at him, warmth in her eyes. I've learned that kindness returns quietly, that respect grows with actions, and that strength, it doesn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stands. The sun sank lower, painting the plains in soft orange and gold. Dust danced in the last rays, lanterns swinging gently, horses shifting in the fading light. She adjusted the shawl once more, feeling its weight as a reminder of endurance and survival. Even the shadows stretch long, she said softly, voice carrying through the warm air. But they don't frighten me. They remind me how far I've come. Exactly, he said. Shadows only show the light you carry. She exhaled slowly, watching the children laugh and the animals graze, the wind shifting gently. The town, the past, it feels distant now. I have my place. I have peace. And you've built it honestly, he said. No shortcuts, no pretense. That's why it holds. She turned her gaze toward him, eyes soft and grateful. Thank you for believing quietly, for letting me find it in my own way. You found it, he said simply. I just stayed beside you as always. Evening fell fully, shadows stretching long across the plains. Lanterns swayed, the horses settled, and the ranch lay quiet, steady, alive. She rested her hands on the fence, chest rising and falling with calm breath, the shawl snug around her shoulders, the bucket at her feet, children laughing softly, and the cowboy standing quietly beside her. For the first time in years, she felt wholly safe. She belonged. Her journey from humiliation to dignity, from fear to courage, had reached this quiet, steady moment. Every act of kindness, every small step, Every silent encouragement had built her here. Step by step, she whispered to the wind. I am here. I am steady. I am free. He tipped his hat, a small smile tugging at his lips. And always I'll be here. Steady, beside you. The sun disappeared behind distant hills, painting the sky in violet and gold. Dust glimmered in the fading light, lanterns casting gentle flickers, and the ranch stood calm, wide, and welcoming. She breathed deeply, hands resting on the fence, shawl snug around her shoulders. The animals, the land, the children, and the quiet cowboy beside her formed a sanctuary. She was home. Sunlight spilled gently over the plains, dust motes dancing in the early rays. She stepped from the small cabin, boots brushing the wooden boards, shawl snug across her shoulders. The air smelled of hay, leather, and the faint hint of morning dew. Morning, the cowboy said, voice quiet, holding a steaming cup. His hat cast a shadow across his face, but his eyes met hers with warmth. Morning, she replied softly, taking the cup from his hand. Steam rose between them, curling in the golden light. You slept well? He asked, voice low, steady. I did, she said, eyes sweeping over the barn, the horses grazing nearby, the lanterns swaying gently in the soft wind. For the first time in a long while, I feel rested. He nodded, shifting slightly, boots creaking on the boards. That's good. You've earned it. A robin landed on the fence, tilting its head at her. She smiled faintly. Even they seem to know, she said, voice light, that the world is calmer now. Calm isn't given, he said quietly. It's built, step by step. And you've built it well. She looked down at the shawl, fingers tracing the folds. It's different now, she murmured. It doesn't feel like protection. It feels like proof. Proof that I survived, that I stood, and that I've earned my place. He nodded. Exactly. Strength often hides in quiet things. A shawl, a lantern, a steady hand. These show who you are more than words ever could. She sipped her coffee, letting warmth fill her chest. The wind stirred softly, carrying the faint scent of earth and horses. I used to wonder if kindness was real, she said. If it could survive in a world like this. It can, he said, voice calm. It's quieter than cruelty, but it lasts longer. You've seen it. A young boy ran by the barn, calling to the girl with the carved horse from before. Come help feed the chickens. She watched them, heart-warming. Hope, she said softly. It finds its way, even here. Because it's nurtured, he said. By hands that care. By steady work. By those who refuse to let fear rule. She adjusted the shawl, feeling its weight, each thread carrying memory and resilience. I never believed I'd have a place, she whispered. A true place where I belong. You do, he said, tone firm but gentle. And you've built it with your own hands. That's what matters. The barn door creaked as he leaned slightly against the frame. Even the town, with its whispers and judgment, it cannot reach here. Not when you stand steady and true. She set the cup down, letting her fingers rest on the wooden rim. Dust glimmered in the morning light. Horses flicked their tails. Lanterns swayed softly. It feels right to be seen as I am. Not mocked, not whispered about, but acknowledged. He tipped his hat, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Acknowledgement earned quietly is stronger than any applause given falsely. She glanced toward the horizon, where the plains stretched endlessly, sun gilding every ridge and hollow. It's vast, she said softly, like the chance to begin again, to live without constant fear. Begin again, he said, not because the past disappears, but because you carry it as proof of strength, not as a burden. She inhaled deeply, chest rising with a calm rhythm. I've carried it long enough. Now it guides me, instead of holding me down. Good, he said quietly. That's how it should be. A flock of birds rose from the grass, circling high above. She watched them, feeling lightness creep into her shoulders. Freedom, it's in small moments too, she said. Not just the big victories, but the quiet mornings, the simple chores, the trust of animals and children alike. He nodded, looking out over the land. Those small moments are proof that life can be gentle, even when the world is harsh. And they remind us what's worth protecting. She turned back to the ranch, taking in the sturdy barn, the lanterns, the animals resting in the sun, and the boy and girl laughing softly as they worked. "I see it now," she said. "Dignity, kindness, hope, it's all here. Right here. In every step, every act, every steady hand." "Exactly," he said. "And you've nurtured it. You've made a sanctuary, not just for yourself, but for others who follow quietly." She smiled, feeling the warmth of morning, the promise of enduring calm, the steady presence of the cowboy beside her. "Thank you," she said softly, voice carrying gratitude without expectation. "For what?" he asked, eyes meeting hers. "For standing beside me," she said. "Not in noise or grandeur, but quietly. So I could see my own strength." "You found it," he said. "I just stayed steady. That's all anyone can do." She looked toward the horizon again, the sun climbing, shadows stretching long, the plains vast and unending. "It feels like a new dawn," she whispered. "A chance to live fully, without fear, without doubt." He nodded once, small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Yes. And it will last because you've earned it, and because you carry it quietly, firmly, and kindly." She adjusted the shawl one last time, each fold a testament to endurance. Dust drifted lazily in the wind, lanterns swayed, horses grazed, and children laughed softly. The ranch lay calm, open, and welcoming, every detail a reminder that kindness, courage, and steady work could overcome even the harshest judgment. "I am here," she said softly, voice carrying over the plains. "I am steady. I am whole." He lifted his hat slightly, eyes warm. "And always, you'll have a place beside me. Steady, safe, and true." The sun rose higher, the sky bright with promise, shadows retreating. The ranch, the animals, the lanterns, the barn, and the shawl, everything whispered of triumph, healing, and dignity reclaimed. Birds circled overhead, dust danced in sunlight, and the plains stretched endlessly, calm and golden. She breathed deeply, feeling the warmth in her chest, the cool breeze against her cheeks, and the quiet honor of the cowboy beside her. Morning had come, and with it, enduring hope.